Amid the Great Sahara Desert lies a treasure among treasures, a country whose monuments inspire wonder and awe. An ancient land once ruled by kings. This is Egypt. Egypt lies at the northeast corner of the continent of Africa. Its shape is roughly that of a square, covering an area of over 386,000 miles. This is nearly twice the size of France, or 4 times the size of Great Britain. Egypt is bordered by the Mediterranean Sea to the north and Libya to the west. To its south is Sudan. Israel and the Red Sea lie east of Egypt. The Sinai Peninsula, the only part of Egypt which is located in Asia, is separated from the rest of the country by the Suez Canal, a man-made canal stretching nearly 100 miles, connecting the Mediterranean and Red Seas. Egypt's land contains 3 principal geographical areas: the eastern and western deserts, and the Nile Valley. Of all of Egypt's land, 96% is desert. Egypt's entire southern region makes up part of the vast North African desert, the Sahara. Both the eastern and western deserts of Egypt are but a small part of the Great Sahara Desert, an area of more than 3,500,000 miles. No other desert comes close to its vastness, or is even half the size of the Sahara. Virtually nothing grows here in the desert. This is a place which is almost uninhabitable, without food, water, or shade. Searing winds, and temperatures soaring to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. The Eastern Desert, often called the Arabian Desert, stretches from the plateau extending from the Nile Valley to the Sinai, an area of barren rock. Steep rock valleys called wadis, formed originally by streams which have now dried up, intersect nearly all of the Arabian Desert. The Western or Libyan Desert covers more than 2/3 of Egypt. It extends from the Nile Valley to the borders of Libya and from the Mediterranean coast all the way south to the Sudan. The Libyan Desert is known for its deep depressions, like the Qattara Depression, which is more than 320 feet below sea level, always burning hot. Separating the western and eastern deserts is Egypt's life source, the Nile River. Without it, all of Egypt would be desert. The longest river in the world, the Nile stretches over 4,100 miles from south to north. The southernmost source of the Nile at the Luvranza River in Burundi is called the White Nile. At Khartoum in the Sudan, the Blue Nile, which streams from Lake Tana in Ethiopia, merges with the White Nile to form the Nile proper. The Blue Nile and the White Nile surge together as one mighty current into the Mediterranean Sea. Since only 3.5% of Egypt's total land area is fertile enough to cultivate or inhabit, almost the entire population of Egypt, over 61 million people, live near the River Nile. The strip of fertile land bordering the River Nile makes up the 3rd geographical region, the Nile Valley. The rich land along this life-giving water varies in width from a mere few hundred yards in southern Egypt to 14 miles near the river's delta. Agriculture, which employs about 1/3 of Egypt's population, depends on the Nile for its fertility. The most fertile region of Egypt is called the Nile Delta, a triangular-shaped area off the Mediterranean Sea. Here, the Nile divides up into branches, which spread out nearly 150 miles along the sea coast. Virtually anything will grow here in the delta's fine silt-like soil. Corn, rice, wheat, tomatoes, watermelon, potatoes, onions, and dates are just some of the produce grown here. 3/4 of Egypt's population live in some 4,000 villages and towns scattered in the delta and up the length of the Nile Valley. Most of them are directly or indirectly connected with agricultural production. According to archaeologists, the area beside the Nile was occupied at least 4,000 years before the birth of Christ. These first settlers, believed to have come from other regions of North Africa and Western Asia, lived in mud huts along the Nile and tended livestock, farmed, fished, and traded. The Egyptian race is a mixture of these various races descended from the ancient Egyptians, Berbers, Sub-Saharan Africans, Arabs, Greeks, and Turks. Ancient Egypt is comprised of three major time periods: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. In 3200 BC, King Menes, the first of a long line of pharaohs, united the two rival kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt and established his capital at Memphis, near modern Cairo. Under one pharaoh's rule, it was a time of great prosperity in which culture and commerce flourished. It was around this time called the Old Kingdom, in which the Great Pyramids were built and the Egyptian system of writing called hieroglyphics developed. Hieroglyphics is a system of 604 symbols or pictures used to represent meanings. The meaning of Egyptian hieroglyphics remained a mystery until 1799, when Napoleon troops found this stone tablet near the city of Rosetta. Called the Rosetta Stone, it contains inscriptions in hieroglyphics and Greek languages, and provided scholar J.F. Champion with the key to hieroglyphic translation. Ancient Egyptians embraced polytheism, the belief in more than one god, each having a special function. Ancient Egyptians believed the great sun god Ra to be the creator and direct ancestor of the kings of Egypt. Other Egyptian gods included Osiris, king and judge of the dead, protector of all, Isis, and Horus. After the fall of the Old Kingdom came a period of unrest, the royal throne eyed by many. In 2050 BC, Egypt was reunited under princes from Thebes, a city 400 miles from Memphis. Thebes was then declared Egypt's capital, marking the beginning of the Middle Kingdom. Civilization again flourished until 1730 BC, when tribes called the Hyksos attacked Egypt and conquered the northern area. The Hyksos were finally driven out in 1570 BC, and the country was united once more, and the New Kingdom was established. The New Kingdom was the most prosperous time in ancient Egyptian history. Magnificent temples and palaces were built. Trade flourished, and Thebes and Memphis became the political, commercial, and cultural centers of the world. The New Kingdom lasted for 4 centuries until its decline. Then, Egypt was conquered first by the Libyans, then by the Assyrians. In 525 BC, the Persians forced the Assyrians out of Egypt and took control of it for nearly 200 years. Then, Alexander the Great, a famous Macedonian leader, conquered Egypt in 332 BC and founded Alexandria as the capital. He ruled until his death, leaving the reign to King Ptolemy. King Ptolemy and his successors ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries. In the years to follow, Egypt was plagued with one invasion after another. The Romans, the Arabs, the Fatimites, the Turks, all eyeing Egypt's fertile land and location. Modern Egyptian history is said to date back to the 18th century. French General Napoleon occupied Egypt, but his forces were expelled in 1801 by the British. In 1805, a common Ottoman soldier, Muhammad Ali, was named the new ruler of Egypt, and during his reign, laid the foundations for Egypt's modern state. Due to financial strain, Egypt fell under British control in 1882. Shortly thereafter, in 1914, Britain declared Egypt a protectorate, which lasted until 1922. In 1952, a military rebellion broke out, and Egypt's ruling king, King Farouk, was forced into exile. Egypt was formally declared a republic 1 year later, in 1953. Today, the capital of Egypt lies just south of the Nile Delta. It is Cairo. Not only is Cairo the largest city in North Africa, it's also the largest city in the entire Arab world, home to 14 million people. Cairo was founded in 969 AD by a tribe of Muslim invaders called the Fatimites. Today, Cairo stands as an important Middle Eastern financial and commerce center. A modern and lively city, Cairo's manufacturing includes textiles, food products, chemicals, and plastics. A few miles from Cairo's heavy traffic and modern buildings are the Giza pyramids on the west bank of the Nile. Monumental tombs to King Mycerinus, Chephren, and Cheops. The biggest of the three is the Great Pyramid of Cheops. A grand stairway to heaven, it is the largest pyramid ever built, measuring 13 acres in area and 482 feet high. Built in 2700 BC, it took thousands of laborers 20 years to finish. Stones range in weight from 2.5 to 15 tons. Egyptians constructed these monuments using extreme mathematical precision. The base is level to within 1 inch over the entire base. The sides are built to an exact angle of 51 degrees, 52 minutes, and the height to circumference ratio is equal to 1/2 pi. If an error of just 2 degrees occurred, the sides would miss reaching to a point at the top by 15 meters. Pyramids were built as a final resting place for the pharaohs, who were believed to be living gods. They were usually a part of a large burial complex, which included 2 temples joined to the pyramid by a causeway. The pharaoh's mummified body was buried in a large sarcophagus, surrounded by all his earthly possessions, which Egyptians believed would be needed in the afterlife. The first pyramids were step pyramids. Later pyramids were built with smooth sides. The pyramids are considered by far to be the most monumental works in the world. Beyond the pyramids at Giza is the famous Sphinx, an immense carving of a creature with the body of a lion and the head of a man. 66 feet high, it is carved from one solid piece of rock and may have been intended to be guardian of the temple at the base of one of the pyramids. The total length of the Sphinx is 260 feet. Each ear is 5 feet long, and its mouth is almost 8 feet wide. Thousands of sphinxes were built in ancient Egypt, but none is as large as this. Alexandria, called the Pearl of the Mediterranean, is the 3rd largest port in the Mediterranean. It is located at the northwest point of the delta and is Egypt's 2nd largest city, with a population of 5.5 million. The city is named after Alexander the Great, who founded it following his conquest of Egypt in 332 BC. Together, Cairo and Alexandria make up the heart of Egypt's economy. Alexandria is a major transportation and industrial area, with principal manufactures such as refined petroleum, textiles, paper, and plastics. 600 miles south of Cairo is Aswan, most popular for the Aswan High Dam, one of the world's largest. Built between 1960 and 1970, the High Dam is 375 feet high and 11,811 feet long. This dam holds back the water of the Nile at Lake Nasser and releases it through huge sluices whenever required. This means that 7 million acres of additional land is irrigated, increasing the area of land which can be cultivated. The dam also gives Egypt 6 times as much electricity than was available before. With a hydroelectricity capacity of 10 billion kilowatts, it supplies electricity to homes and factories. On the east bank of the Nile at Luxor, once the site of the ancient city of Thebes, is the ancient temple built in dedication to Amun-Ra, the most famous of all Egyptian gods. Numerous pharaohs added their magnificent works. On the west bank lies the Valley of the Kings, a burial ground containing several royal tombs built roughly between 1570 and 1085 BC. It is here where English archaeologist Howard Carter discovered King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. Inside the main burial chamber, Carter uncovered a stone sarcophagus, which in turn held 3 coffins, one inside the other. 2 made of gilded wood, and the third of 22-karat gold. This coffin contained an extraordinary mask of the pharaoh, made of solid gold, showing the king protected by the vulture and cobra, symbolizing Upper and Lower Egypt. Inside this mask was the mummy of King Tutankhamun. King Tutankhamun died around 1330 BC at the age of 18, leaving behind priceless artifacts of exquisite workmanship. A wooded throne covered in gold, vases of pure alabaster, gold flower bouquets, numerous statues, couches, chariots, and chairs from his childhood. These and the king's other treasures are displayed at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Egypt's southern city of Abu Simbel is famous for the great temple of Ramses II, built in about 1280 BC. A gigantic temple guarded by 4 colossal statues of god King Ramses. Each statue is 65 feet high, surrounded by smaller statues of the king's family, including his wife, Queen Nefertari. Built so close to the Nile, this temple is truly an example of extraordinary architecture and a tribute to the artists who built it, who never had a view of the temple from a distance. By Ramses II's royal order, the temple was constructed in such a way so that the sun rising over the Nile would illuminate the interior of the temple, striking the statues of Ramses and the gods seated together. This would occur twice a year, on the king's birthday and on his coronation day. In 1963, the rising waters of the Aswan Dam threatened Ramses' temple. It took several years and $40 million with the help of experts from all around the world to accomplish the incredible task of moving the temple to higher ground. Workers cut the temple into over 1,000 pieces, some weighing 33 tons, and reassembled them well above the high water mark, 1 block at a time. Today, Egypt is officially known as the Arab Republic of Egypt. The flag consists of 3 equal horizontal bands of red, white, and black, with the national emblem positioned in the center. The government of Egypt is called democratic presidential. The president is nominated by the People's Assembly and serves a 6-year term. The president is able to appoint 1 or more vice presidents, a prime minister, and presidential cabinet. The People's Assembly is Egypt's legislative body. It is made up of 454 members, 444 of which are elected, and 10 appointed by the president. Local government is exercised by governors and mayors, who are appointed by the central government or by popular election. Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser became the president of Egypt in 1954 and became known as a greatly respected Arab leader. His primary goals included to remove all traces of British power from Egypt and to improve living conditions. In 1958, he persuaded Syria to merge with Egypt to form the United Arab Republic, in hopes that other Arab forces would also join. This was short-lived, however, as Syria withdrew from this alliance in 1961. In 1967, Egypt entered into a six-day war after Israeli forces invaded the Sinai Peninsula. As a result, much of Egypt's territory was lost, and its economy and armed forces were shattered. Nasser died in 1970 and was succeeded by Anwar al-Sadat. Sadat regained some of Egypt's lost territory and ended long-standing Soviet influence, seeking closer ties with the West. Sadat is most remembered for signing a peace treaty with Israel in 1979. Assassinated by Muslim fundamentalists in 1981, Sadat was succeeded by President Hosni Mubarak in 1981. Mubarak was re-elected in 1987 and 1993. Although Egypt's industrial base has made great strides in the 20th century, the economy remains strained due to limited farmland and a rapidly growing population. Chief commercial products include tourism, Suez Canal usage, petroleum and refined products, cotton, and textiles. Arabic is the official language, spoken slightly differently in Egypt than in the rest of the Arab world. There are 28 characters in the Arabic alphabet, written from right to left. English and French are also spoken as school and business languages. Almost 95% of Egyptians are Muslims, the follower of Muhammad, who was born in 6th century AD. The Muslim faith believes in one God, Allah, as the creator of the universe. In addition, there are over 2 million Christians in Egypt. From the depths of the Nile's life-giving waters and bustling cities, to the midst of mystery and antiquity at the desolate edge of the desert, Egypt remains a thriving modern culture rooted deep in tradition, a wealth of culture, life, and heritage.